are you okay? Do you know how long he's been like this? Yeah, this has been going on pretty much nonstop since the third period started. Wait, so you're telling me he's been like that for the last 16 hours? It almost happened again! Yeah, and I don't think he slept either. This series is gonna kill me! While this game did not take as long as Game 3, the outcome still remains the same. Vegas Golden Knights win Game 4 of their first round series against the Winnipeg Jets by a final score of 4-2. Big news between Game 3 and Game 4, as I alluded to. After Game 3, during my Game 3 reaction, Josh Morrissey will miss this game and the remainder of the series with an undisclosed lower body injury. If we're going to theorize, it looks like he may have exploded his knee when he went in for a late hit on Zach Whitecloud, and his knee hit an equally soft knee in Zach Whitecloud's right knee, which I think has gotten injured more times than I can count this season. And Whitecloud came away the better, Morrissey came away the worst, and so here we are at the start of Game 4, no Morrissey, and you got the Winnipeg whiteout after losing Game 3 in double overtime. That building is going to be going absolutely bonkers, and the Winnipeg Jets know the statistics of whether you like winning Game 4 as well as what happens when you go down 3-1 in a series. The team that goes up 3-1, it wins the series like 91% of the time, and if you win Game 2, go to Game 5 in an even split, it's a little bit more of a coin toss. So there's a lot at stake in this game. And it definitely opened like the Winnipeg Jets knew what was at stake. They basically jumped out of this game with just absolutely flying, controlling the play through much of the first period, especially the early part of the first period. I believe they landed a couple of the first, basically a good chunk of the first few shots of the game, and really looked like they were dominating. And the dominant play was forcing the Golden Knights to make mistakes. And you know how much we all as a fan base hate mistakes, especially when it's our defensemen who make mistakes. And one of our defensemen made a pretty sizable mistake about 3 minutes into the game that led one of the most dangerous forwards in the entire NHL, let alone the Western Conference, let alone the Winnipeg Jets. If you're going to pick somebody on the Jets to go in on a breakaway in the first few minutes of the game, who do you not want it to be? The list is pretty short. It's, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Blake Wheeler, or in this case, Mark Scheifele, who got the puck on a little bit of a bump play at the offensive blue line for Winnipeg and was in on Brossoit all by himself. Tries to beat Brossoit going forehand, backhand. Brossoit is there, and Mark Scheifele goes flying over the goal line at about 9/10 the speed of light and crashes into the boards. Now, Scheifele stays down for a little bit, but ultimately is able to get up and continue the play. I bring this up because this does come home to roost for the Jets in about 2 minutes of game time. All the pressure that the Winnipeg Jets have been piling on through the early part of this game ultimately results in the Golden Knights taking what we could all call a very ill-advised penalty, and that puts the Winnipeg Jets on the power play. This power play has been lethal throughout the entire series, doing a lot more damage than the Golden Knights power play has been able to do on the other end of the ice. So with all that firepower, it's very obvious that they're going to try and throw everything at the net, primarily through their elite players in the form of Scheifele. And so that's exactly what they started doing. The Winnipeg Jets started cycling the puck down low. Scheifele receives a slot pass from Brossoit's left to his right, and Scheifele goes to fire it on net. And it's not the traditional Scheifele shot. And I'm like, okay, we dodged a bullet. The puck must have rolled on him. But then as soon as the whistle goes, we get to witness something that every hockey fan knows, whether you've seen it on your team, whether you've seen it on the team you're playing against, you know exactly what happens when the player does this. Uh-oh, locker room. As Scheifele very quickly skates off the ice, goes down the 2 steps and immediately down the Winnipeg tunnel, never to return in this game. Now, one would think that losing one of your top offensive options would kind of deter you from scoring, but literally the next shift, the Winnipeg Jets are able to capitalize on a couple of blown defensive coverages, and Blake Wheeler is able to give the Winnipeg Jets a 1-0 lead on the power play. So, just to take stock, the Golden Knights, in some way, shape, or form, removed Mark Scheifele from the game at the cost of not being able to score first. So, you tell me whether or not that's a decent trade. So while the Winnipeg whiteout's going absolutely bonkers, obviously the Golden Knights need to make sure that they're able to respond. And respond is exactly what the Knights have been good at all season. They don't really play from behind very often. They never really did in the regular season. And they were always very good at responding when their opposition put up the first goal. with the very notable exception of game 1 of this series. So anyway, a few minutes start ticking off the clock. We get to about halfway through the first period, and obviously the Knights are a little bit fed up with the fact that they haven't been able to muster much offense, and Connor Hellebuck is being Connor Hellebuck. And so I guess Brett Howden jumped over the boards, Miracle on Ice movie style, took a pass and said, okay, I'm going to be the main character of this game. Shot it on net, had the shot blocked, picks up the puck from the defender's skates and fires it again, this time past Connor Hellebuck and tying up the game at 1 apiece. Now, this is Brett Howden's first career playoff goal, and it comes at a very pivotal moment as the Winnipeg Jets had kind of siphoned a lot of momentum out of that. The building was jumping, everybody was excited, and it looked like the Jets were ready to run away with this game. This goal by Howden about halfway through the first period really kind of settled things down because it reminded the Golden Knights that, yes, we are the better team in this series, and if we keep playing shutdown defense, we should be able to get to the end of this period and ultimately the end of the game in the exact situation they wanted to be. And, with a couple of penalties here, a couple of decent opportunities there, but not a lot of high danger chances for either side, the game gets to the first intermission, tied up at 1 apiece. And with the second period, it brings an entire new dynamic to this game. Now, if you've been paying attention to this team for the majority of the season, you know that the second period has not been the Golden Knights' friend. And the way that the offense have gone, especially in games 2 through, game 2 and 3 up to this point, it was odd that the Golden Knights actually had carried the play in the second periods of the last 2 games, and it's like that's what they were trying to do in this instance as well. Kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start again. Winnipeg was trying to capitalize early, had some decent opportunities, as they often do. They tend to start the period incredibly well, and I kind of have to give credit where credit is due. But that being said, they're still a little bit lagging behind, and the absence of Morrissey and Scheifele now in this game are starting to rear their ugly heads in the fact that they're having to play more players more time than they're expecting. The line mismatches are a little bit more prevalent, especially with the depth of the Golden Knights, and the fact that Morrissey isn't there is really hurting their ability to prevent the Golden Knights from getting clean zone entries. One of these instances would result in a Winnipeg penalty, and that would put the Golden Knights on the power play. Now, the power play in of itself wasn't very good. This was about halfway through the period, and it wasn't very good. However, they kind of just did what you want to do. They got good established zone time right at the very end of the power play, and ultimately that's kind of all you need because there's still about 10 seconds between when the guy gets out of the box and when he's truly a factor in the play, and the Golden Knights only needed 2 of those seconds as the puck moved atop around the high part of the offensive zone and was put on net, and William Karlsson was just there in front. And I initially didn't think this was going to count because, Hellebuck fell down like he had been shot, but William Karlsson directed a shot pass, probably more shot than pass, through the wickets on Connor Hellebuck, and ultimately put the Golden Knights ahead 2-1. Now this play would be reviewed to check if there's a distinct kicking motion. I personally thought they were going to challenge it for goalie interference, but William Karlsson was outside of the blue paint, and Hellebuck kind of skated into him. So even if they had challenged that, it would have been a really bad decision. So ultimately, there's no challenge. The goal was confirmed by the officials on the ice and the officials in Toronto. And so the most underwhelmed goal celebration ever that, perpetrated by me actually wound up being the goal that was one of the watershed moments in this game, giving the Golden Knights a 2-1 lead. That's not going to count. So obviously it counted. And so the Golden Knights are up 2-1, and now you had to think the Jets are going to really, really push hard to try and get this game under control. But 40 seconds later, the Golden Knights would get another clean zone entry. Braden McNabb would kind of fire a lazy shot on Hellebuck, which would kind of glance off of his glove, go into the far corner. The puck was retrieved by the Golden Knights, cycled back out to the point. The guy at the point, I think it was one of the forwards, found Shea Theodore kind of floating in the neutral spot, vacated by McNabb, kind of chasing the puck around. And he kind of walks in through like some dead ice, and nobody challenges him. At the same time, Ivan Barbashev is shading in front of the net, kind of in a battle with one of the defenders, and his back is to the play. Theodore throws the puck on net, and whether it be by pure skill, great coaching, or just absolute sheer dumb luck, Theodore's shot just barely tips off of Ivan Barbashev's stick and goes over the glove of Hellebuck, giving the Golden Knights their second goal of the period, a 3-1 lead, and their second goal in 47 seconds of game time. Canada Life Center is absolutely stunned at this point. Their prize goaltender had just given up 2 relatively shaky goals in the span of less than a minute, and what was a tie game is now blown wide open in the favor of the VGK, and that is where the period would really end. The Jets weren't really able to muster much in the back half of the second period aside from some late opportunities, but they entered the third period pretty flat again and trailing by multiple goals for the second consecutive game. That happened in game 3 too. That doesn't make me feel better. Learning from the sins of 48 hours ago, the Golden Knights actually come out to start the third period, probably the best opening 2 minutes of a period of the entire game. While they came out flat in the first and flatter in the second, they came out with a lot of poise in the third and actually had some decent opportunities in the offensive zone. Michael Amadio had a decent chance pretty early on, and I believe Jack Eichel had a decent opportunity pretty early on as well. But unfortunately, history does have a cruel way of repeating itself, and 200 feet from your own net, Michael Amadio takes a really ill-advised hooking/tripping/tackling penalty. Like, let's be honest, he tackled the guy and puts Winnipeg on the power play. The Winnipeg is 1-for-1 on the power play in this game and has looked dangerous, especially in early period power plays. Just go back to 48 hours when they scored one late in the third period to make that game 4-3 at the time. Yeah, I'd rather not spend more time talking about what was almost the worst collapse in Golden Knights playoff history, but I digress. So Amadio goes to the box, and pretty early on in the power play, the Winnipeg Jets get their first dangerous chance, and it wound up not being super dangerous right up until the second it was, as Wheeler, I believe it was Wheeler, takes a shot from like the mid, like half wall on net, and it looks like Brossoit's got it under control. The puck kind of tips up in the air, and Alex Pietrangelo comes out of nowhere and essentially hits the puck as high up in the air as I've ever seen a hockey puck go without hitting the netting. And on the way down, he kind of goes to paw at it, and I don't know what happened. But he straight up missed it, and the puck came down, and whether it ricocheted off of Alec Martinez in the pile or just went off of Brossoit's shoulder and behind him, it got behind him somehow, and the Winnipeg Jets score the funniest, most frustrating, and most consequential power play goal of the series, it felt like at the time. It was just a fluke bounce, and Brossoit has been the victim of so many fluke bounces this year. And so to have one happen at this stage early in the third period of game 4 was just a little bit too poetically mean for me. So I was a little bit irritated. And the fact that it was Pietrangelo who, instead of letting the puck come to him, he jumped up to play the puck and just completely whiffed on it. And now it's a 1-goal game. Mercifully, things would calm down a little bit as the Knights returned to their traditional game plan, was a little bit better on offense, was really solid on team defense. A lot of Winnipeg shots for the middle 10 minutes of the third period were from outside, relatively low danger opportunities. But obviously, as the game begins to wind down, those opportunities in the more dangerous areas of the ice are going to start opening up. However, with 4 minutes to go in regulation, it would actually be the Golden Knights in the form of Mark Stone and Brett Howden that would have one of the most dangerous chances of the period. So Mark Stone picks off a pass in the neutral zone, and kind of 1-on-3 is the entire Winnipeg Jets defense core, taking the puck from the far boards to kind of the near side of the ice, closer to the left circle. And when he gets to the left circle, he sees Brett Howden streaking in from the neutral zone, and he just kind of feathers a pass in his direction. Hellebuyck is completely sold out at this point, assuming that Stone is going to shoot it because he's Mark Stone and he's got 2 goals in this series, and the guy coming down the wing is Brett Howden, who has 1 goal in his career in the playoffs. So if I'm Connor Hellebuyck, I can't exactly blame him for favoring the more likely target, but Stone, being unselfish and having just a massive hockey IQ, finds Howden on the back door. But unfortunately, Howden missed a wide open net. So that wasn't good. There was nothing good about that, and it was mildly infuriating as it turned the puck the other direction and gave Winnipeg some momentum. So ultimately, with about 90 seconds to go, they proceed to pull Hellebuyck, as you do when you're down a goal, and then all hell starts to break loose. Chances left, right, and center for the Jets, and ultimately the Golden Knights are just trying to hold on for as long as possible. And with about 30 seconds to go in regulation, the Jets are hemmed in the offensive zone. They have got the Golden Knights absolutely by the ears, And whether it be a misplay or just a missed opportunity or just too slow of a developing read, I believe one of the Golden Knights defenders or forwards, it was one of them, I was basically blacked out with nerves at this point, kind of removes a Winnipeg Jets player from the puck, and Mark Stone picks it up in the high in the defensive zone. Brett Howden has streaked out of the zone because he knows what's happening. Stone throws the puck up the middle of the ice, kind of hits Howden on the far boards in front of the bench for the Winnipeg Jets, and he takes a couple of steps over the blue line and fires a dart into the vacant net. It poses to be the dagger as Brett Howden's empty netter makes it 4-2, and that is where the score would finish. That goal coming with 16 seconds left in regulation. And the Jets, despite winning the next faceoff, would never get the puck in the offensive zone again. And that's all she wrote. Vegas Golden Knights win 4-2 and take a commanding 3-1 series lead. So immediate reaction, the first star of this game has to be Brett Howden, obviously. He scored the first goal of game and the last goal of the game, which is very good. And Mark Stone played incredibly well. Phil Kessel played really good, even though it's reported that he's playing on a bum ankle. I could not for the life of me tell that he was in any way, shape, or form hindered. He may just be playing through it out of spite. It was a very solid game by the Golden Knights with exception to some poor discipline, as the Winnipeg Jets' 2 goals both came on the power play. And both the penalties that preceded those power plays were inherently stupid. And from my perspective as a fan, most penalties are going to be inherently stupid, but we can't exactly say that they weren't there, weren't important. I wasn't on the ice. I didn't know the situation, but it just feels bad that both their goals came on the power play, and it gives them some confidence on the power play. The big storyline again for the Golden Knights is nobody gets hurt. It was a dominant game. Laurent Brossoit played incredibly well despite giving up 2, even though I really only pinned one of them on him because the other one was Petrangelo's fault because apparently he never played baseball. Because how do you not at least catch that ball? It was hovering in the air for that long. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, the Golden Knights enter Game 5 in the Fortress on Thursday, 100% healthy, and there's still some fog surrounding the injury situations for the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, with Morrissey being ruled out for the entire series, this injury to Scheifele, I saw that he's traveling to Vegas, and Rick Bowness, the head coach of the Jets, is optimistic, but nothing has been set in stone. And I know it's the playoffs, but you have to wonder whether or not, if he gets in the lineup for Game 5, if he'd be slightly hindered. I would be astonished if he doesn't play, and I'd be even more astonished if he doesn't contribute. But that's just the way things are. And with the Jets, again, Nikolai Ehlers is still out, allegedly, and they've still got some injury problems throughout their depth. And going up against a fully healthy Golden Knights team who have won 3 games in a row back in the Fortress with 2 days rest, it's going to be a really interesting game in Game 5. Now, I really would like the Golden Knights to wrap it up on Thursday, but I can't be that optimistic. 3-1 series lead is a good situation for the Golden Knights to be, especially with how dominated they were in Game 1 of this series, when they were moved from relatively favored in the series to pretty strongly the underdog going into Game 2. I believe they're now officially favored again by more than 51-49, but this series has kind of come open, and Connor Hellebuyck, give him credit, he's playing incredibly well, but the Golden Knights are just so deep, and the Jets core can't seem to match up with the intensity that lines 1 through 4 and defense pairs 1 through 3 for the Golden Knights provide. It's not an unfair matchup, but it's definitely a matchup that is advantageous to the Vegas position. So I'm not going to put the cart before the horse, but I feel like the Golden Knights are in a very good position to wrap things up relatively soon, whether it happens on Thursday in Vegas or whether it happens on Saturday in Winnipeg in Game 6 or whether it happens in Game 7 in Vegas on Monday. Either way, it's interesting. 3-1 series lead is very good. The Golden Knights historically are good with 3-1 series leads. The team is playing well. The coaching staff understands what's going on. Bruce Cassidy is making fun of the fact that they got to sell more beer by going to a double overtime game. Morale seems good. Brett Howden and Michael Amadio get to wear the Elvis wigs in Winnipeg. Who'd have thunk it? Honestly, those are 2 players who didn't have any playoff experience, and now they get to be, Amadio gets to be a double overtime hero, and Howden gets to be a multi-goal scorer in a playoff game. It's just storylines all over the place. My favorite storyline of the entire playoff series so far was the chants directed at Laurent Brossoit. Obviously, he's the former backup of the Winnipeg Jets with his tandem mate in Connor Hellebuck. And so this is a really interesting matchup in between the pipes on both sides. And with the Winnipeg fans chanting in so many words saying, "You're a backup," he's not playing like a backup. He's playing incredibly well right now. And a backup just won 2 games on the road, which is more than can be said for Winnipeg, whose starter only won 1 game on the road. And if they want the series to continue, he's going to have to win more than 1 game on the road. But that being said, Game 5 coming up on Thursday, chance for the Golden Knights to wrap up the series on home ice, get some critical rest days, as it looks like the LA Kings and Edmonton Oilers are just destined for at least 6, probably 7 games. So those extra days of rest could be important as long as they're able to close out the series. Winnipeg's going to fight incredibly hard in Game 5 because they don't want their series to end, especially in Vegas in front of hostile fans or, from our perspective, friendly fans. But ultimately, that's for Thursday to decide. I believe that's it for this one. I think I've said all that's needed to be said on the Vegas Golden Knights 4-2 win in Game 4, taking a commanding 3-1 series lead. Thank you for watching. Comment down below if you want to interact with me. Click the like button if you liked it. Click subscribe if you really enjoyed it. Tell all your friends. We almost did it again, but we didn't do it this time.